Hi, welcome back to this fifth episode in the series that we've called The Master Trainer. And we've been looking so far at the systematic training process that we can follow in order to provide a quality learning experience and a quality learning environment for our participants. In previous films, and in particularly the last two, we've looked at some of the prerequisites for identifying and analysing training need. And for this film, I want to move on a little bit onto the whole subject of once we've identified a training need, then we have to design something to meet that need. Now, designing learning interventions is a very difficult task, and it's very easy to get wrong. There are many trainers, for example, when they approach it, they would rely on past experience. This has worked well for me in previous situations, so it's bound to be okay now, isn't it? Some of the trainers would rely on personal convenience, for want of another word. You know, I happen to like this exercise. I know I can make it work, and so therefore I'll include it, and it'll be a very successful event. And thirdly, there are some trainers that actually design on false assumptions. I suppose a classic example is this mythical idea of a graveyard shift after lunch, where somehow our learners are touched by some sleepy dust and they just have no interest at all in learning. All of those are false assumptions, and all of those are wrong ways of going about designing learning. The master trainer actually realizes that there are two elements to designing a good quality learning intervention. The first one is that they need to provide an emotionally safe learning environment for all their participants. And the second one is that they need to provide a clear, and I'm not too sure if this is the right word, but followable pathway for the participants to reach new understanding. And particularly in relation to the last element, the master trainer knows that the pathway can only be built on a solid foundation of sound learning theory. Now then, that means that the master trainer engages in what I would call intentional design. In other words, that they have a reason for every single element that they put into the design. And when asked, they would be able to give that reason. So learning theory, sound learning theory, is obviously a very important aspect of the master trainer's armory. Now, before we came to film today, I actually Googled learning theory. And would you believe I found 750 million instances of learning theory, results of 734 million in Google for learning theory. Now, it's hardly surprising, is it, when faced with that complexity, that most trainers sort of steer clear of the whole situation. Master trainers, however, recognize the complexity, but understand that they still need to found their design on something solid, on something proven. And so a master trainer will take maybe 4 or 5 of these theories that they can make sense of, theories that they know have a ring of truth about them. And those 4 or 5 theories become, if you like, the guiding star of the master trainer. And whatever context they find themselves in, however they find themselves needing to design a piece of learning, they will always use those 4 or 5 learning theories as a way of staying on track and a way of providing quality and not getting carried away by building a course around activities or building a course around your pet theories or model. So what I want to do, I just want to give you one of the theories that's part of my guiding star. And that theory is a theory that's attributed to a gentleman called Malcolm Knowles. And Malcolm Knowles was an American academic, and he picked up on something that a German in 1833 highlighted. And it was a very simple fact. And the fact was that adults learn differently to children. And Malcolm Knowles made this statement that caught my attention, and he said this: we know far more about how animals learn than we do about how children learn. And we know far more about how children learn than we do about how adults learn. And so he then devoted his life to trying to discover how adults learn and how we need to build that into our approach to adult development. He ultimately came up with a number of principles. The principles are outlined in a number of books that he wrote, and I'll just leave them to you to Google them. That's a trainer's way of saying I've just forgotten them now, but I'm sure you can find them if you want to. But certainly the truth is he's out there, he's very well known. But I would like to give you very quickly, very briefly, the 6 principles that I think a master trainer needs to take into account when they are developing training for adults. So the first principle is this: reason. Adults need to know why they're learning something. Before an adult will wholeheartedly engage in learning, then they've got to satisfy themselves that the reasons are valid. Second principle is experience. Unlike children, adults have a wide range of experience, both good and bad, and they require that experience to be acknowledged and valued because it forms part of their identity, and they need to relate everything they learn to what they already know. The third principle is involvement. Adults want to be involved and have some responsibility in the learning process. They need to feel some ownership of the process, or at least a part of it. Adults think independently, and they'll quickly form views about their development, and they'll come to a value judgment about the training courses or the learning activities that they're involved in. So reason, experience, involvement. The fourth principle is readiness. Now, this is really important, and it's often overlooked. Readiness says this, that adults will readily engage in learning experiences that have an immediate relevance and impact on their work and personal life, okay? That immediacy, that need for what is being learned to be able to put into practice straight away. Adults are reluctant to waste their time on what has been or on what may be. The master trainer knows the importance of timing and scheduling. Why learn how to use a new IT program now when you won't have access to it for another 6 months? It's logic, isn't it? But it's so easily forgotten. Readiness is that principle. The fifth principle is, I've called this problem orientation. It's highlighted in a variety of different ways, but problem orientation. And the principle says this, that adults have a natural orientation away from content or curriculum-based design and a natural inclination toward dealing with real-life difficulties. The general attitude is that if there is no problem to solve, then there's no reason to learn. The sixth and final principle that Malcolm Knowles highlighted was one of motivation. The most potent motivators for adults are internal motivators, because adults are driven by aspirations, a desire for increased job satisfaction, continued personal growth and development, etc. These obviously have their roots in self-esteem and self-actualization, but that can easily be squashed by restricted access to in-course learning opportunities, which arise from poor program design. There are lots of things that we could say about those principles, but I actually want to leave them to you. And I have a suggestion to make to you. First of all, I suggest that you download the support material that accompanies this film, where we'll go into a little bit more detail about these principles. But here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take a piece of learning that you've had responsibility for, that you've designed. And I wonder, could you run it through the filter of Knowles' adult learning principles? Is there something in there that are stretching adults to solve a problem? Or in the design, are we too quick to provide answers? Do we allow them to struggle? The pain of problem solving improves the quality of learning. What we're building into the design, can our learners go away and pretty much straight away put into practice some of what they've learned? If not, it's probably going to be forgotten very, very quickly. Is there a way in which the learners can take ownership, at least of part of the training program? Maybe part of the admin, they can decide, I suppose, on things like when we have lunch, when we take coffee breaks, when we finish. But why don't we give them some opportunities to decide what they want to learn? Maybe design a range of parallel activities and say, get involved in whichever one you want to get involved in. Maybe provide a range of case studies and give them the opportunity and the choice to choose whichever case study they want? Is there a way in which we can activate reason and motivation within our learners? How about instead of starting our learning off with the deathly introductions and the creep around the room, is there a way in which we can highlight why the training is important? Can we somehow explore how this might tap in and play into the personal aspirations of each person? I'm not saying this is easy. It's far easier to rely on past experience. It's far easier to just rely on personal preference. It's far easier to go along with the accepted myths around all this. But the master trainer refuses to go along with the crowd. The master trainer stands on their own feet, has their own principles, has their own views, and designs and delivers in accordance with those views. Okay, that's the end of this film. We've opened up the whole idea of designing training. As I've already said, please download the support material. And as always, I love to engage with you. Please leave your comments beneath the film. And until next time, I'll see you. Bye-bye. Hi, thanks for watching that film. I hope there was at least one thing you could take away with you. I want to keep you just for 20 seconds more because I want you to do something for me. This is a brand new channel, as you know, and we've got a load of things that we want to do with you. We've got a ton of stuff we want to give you. The only thing is YouTube needs you to subscribe, and they will then allow us to do the stuff we want to do. Red button down to the right-hand side, click it, all done. Please subscribe. The sooner you subscribe, the sooner we can do great stuff with you. Thanks.